All right, party peoples of the interwebs, a brief summary and some highlights from the interview that broke the internet. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. It's a Sunday. We have our Sunday show, Viva and Barnes Law for the People extravaganza, 6 o'clock every Sunday. Be sure to tune in. I am sure that if you're watching this video, you are one of the 28 million people or one of the 28 million views of that interview on YouTube alone. Between YouTube, Spotify, and clips, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of views that Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump got. It was an absolutely fantastic interview. Anybody who says otherwise either didn't watch it or is a blue checkmark MSM Democrat idiot. It was a 3-hour marathon of an interview, and it was just so freaking pleasant to listen to hear Donald Trump, a man who has been vilified more than anybody on earth. Donald Trump has been vilified more than murderous dictators, and I don't think I'm exaggerating in the least. To hear someone who has been so vilified sit down and just talk to another human as a human, the reason why people don't want people watching that interview is because you understand that Donald Trump is not Adolf Hitler or Adolf Hitler adjacent. Donald Trump is probably more like the uncle that you loved, the grandfather that you loved, than anybody nefarious. He sits down for 3 hours with Joe Rogan, and the idiots on the left, those blue checkmark jackasses on the internet, are saying, oh my goodness, it was a meandering, incoherent discussion. People have forgotten what discussion is about. Discussions are not linear. It is a meandering discussion, and that's what Joe Rogan does best. And I tell you one thing, this Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump, I think, is the highlight, the pinnacle, the summit of Joe Rogan's career. It is so well deserved. There's nobody else on earth who could have done that interview the way Joe Rogan did. It was awesome. I put together some highlights, but I want to put together first some thoughts. Every presidential candidate, every politician on earth who ever vies for office should be required to sit down for a long format interview with someone who is not adversarial, but not someone who is a bootlicking sycophant. Not someone who is a paid propagandist a la David Muir or Crystal Ball or fill in the blank with any other one of those MSM propagandists. They should sit down with someone for a real discussion, a long format discussion, so that we can get to know somebody, because they say about golf that golf doesn't develop character, it reveals character. You spend 5 hours on a course with someone, you're going to get to know who they are. You spend 3 hours with an open discussion with someone, you're going to get to know who they are beyond the sound bites and beyond the lies that they are devil incarnates. Or that should actually be devils incarnate. You're going to actually understand that they are not catchphrases, they are not Satan incarnate. You get to know who they are. And something tells me that if Kamala Harris had the audacity, had the courage to sit down for 3 hours with Joe Rogan, my goodness, the world would see Kamala Harris for who she is. Chase Geiser from InfoWars put out an amazing tweet and said there's only one person on earth whose career would not be advanced from going on Joe Rogan, and that is Kamala Harris. And you have to appreciate just how insightful that is. Everyone on earth vies to get on Joe Rogan. If it's only for publicity, everyone vies to get on Joe Rogan because he's got the biggest podcast on earth. Everyone vies to get on Joe Rogan because it's the ultimate flattery to be invited onto Joe Rogan, because it's the biggest platform on earth and because it's the most insightful discussion on earth. There's only one person on earth who would not only not willingly go on that show, but wouldn't jump through hoops of fire to get on that show, because they would reveal them to the world for the buffoon that they are, and that one person is Kamala Harris. The fact that Kamala Harris and the Kamala Harris campaigns knows that a long format interview on Joe Rogan would be devastating, even more devastating than what she's been doing to her own campaign, tells you everything you need to know about Kamala Harris. But enough about Kamala Harris. Let's get to the highlights of this interview. In a sentence, if it's a very long sentence, Donald Trump is a down-to-earth, practical politician who wants to use tariffs to bring back manufacturing to America, to force America to become once again independent. He's a man who has some knowledge of fighting. There was a great exchange where for a second you forgot it was Joe Rogan and Donald Trump. It was just two dudes talking about sports. You learned about what Donald Trump learned from his first 4 years in office and what he'll do differently if he gets another 4 years. And then some concrete policy and some humorous segments from the podcast. I'm going to play 5 clips and just tell you what I think of these 5 clips and why I think it summarizes the interview as a whole. But go watch the interview. It's absolutely amazing.
Of people that were longtime Democrats like Elon and Bill Ackman and all these different, very intelligent people.
And they support me now. Bill Ackman supports me. He's been very supportive too.
This is what I wanted to ask you. What was it like when you actually got in? Because nobody really can prepare you for that. When you're running for president, you don't really know what it's going to be like when you actually get into office. What did you think it was going to be like?
In office or when I decided to run?
So when you got in.
When I was in. So when I was in and won and was in the White House, essentially. Yes. Well, first of all, it was very surreal.
I would imagine.
It's very interesting. When I got shot, it wasn't surreal. That should have been surreal. When I was laying on the ground, I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly where I was hit. They were saying you were hit all over the place because there was so much blood from the ear. You would know that better than anyone. When they get the ear torn up.
Ears bleed a lot,
they bleed. Anyway, so, and I was thinking the other day, when that happened, I really knew where I was. I knew exactly what happened. I said I wasn't hit anywhere else. With the presidency, it was a very surreal experience, okay?
Like, what's day one like?
Listening to Donald Trump talk about the revelation he had after nearly being killed live on television, it's really revelatory. You're dealing with a guy who should be enjoying the later years of his life, playing golf, eating at fine restaurants, enjoying the fruits of his life's labor. Instead, he is now literally dodging bullets and fighting for the future of the country because he has found something greater than himself to fight for. But you can't have Americans hearing that, everybody, because after all, according to MSM and Kamala Harris, that awful, awful person, Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler.
And now a brief word from our sponsor. People, have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I actually just saw a video. You're watching a piece of it right now, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking, he is stronger, can work out longer, and has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making just one change. He says he feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing it, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. She looks leaner, and she's got energy for the grandkids all day as well. Chuck made a video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Viva or by clicking on the link in the description below. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, it's chuckdefense.com/Viva. Just a reminder, Chuck Norris is 84 years young and he's still got more energy than 99% of people out there. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on chuckdefense.com/Viva. And now back to the vlog.
And then you hear a clip from Donald Trump, which might explain why there was peace in the world, or at least more peace in the world when he was president. An anecdote about John Bolton, not Michael Bolton, but the anecdote of when he selected John Bolton, and then someone told him, that guy's a bad guy. Trouble follows him everywhere. And Donald Trump said, yeah, he is a bad guy, but every now and again, it's useful to have a bad guy on your team because people are actually afraid that psychopath John Bolton will go to war, which might actually make some countries, some dictators, not do the things they did when Biden was in office.
And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy and one of the richest people around and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy. Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, he's a bad guy. He's just, it always works out bad with that guy. I said, oh, man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. You know, he's here. And he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job. And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us. He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people. And it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you.
And here's a wonderful highlight when Rogan and Trump talk about the propagandist David Muir, who fact-checked only Donald Trump. And my goodness, David, did you apologize for the fact that you were wrong about crime going down now that the FBI has issued their revised numbers?
I think that David Muir and that woman that was aside, I never even heard of her, but they kept interrupting me. It was like, I said, how many people am I debating here? I got this one and I got you two. But he went after me 11 different times. You know, it's interesting. I always thought he was a nice guy, but he's just like the rest of them, you know?
Well, that's his job, unfortunately, and I'm
No,
sure
but not when they're
what they
wrong.
want. You're right. Well, the problem was they fact-checked you and they didn't fact-check her. And
Not
one of the
at
most
all.
egregious examples of that was when she said that there are no troops right now deployed in war zones.
Yeah.
There's a very famous viral video that went online of troops in a war zone saying, well, what the fuck are we then? Because there's thousands of them. Dan Crenshaw, the congressman, posted on his Instagram all of the various examples of troops that are deployed, thousands and thousands of troops that are currently deployed.
Stupidly deployed.
But the point is, if this is going to be an actual real debate and not a propaganda exercise, if it's going to be a real debate, you have to fact check everybody.
So
Like if someone says
never went
maybe she
after her.
thought there was no,
Right.
which is also a problem.
And then you listen to Donald Trump explain just how much of a debacle the withdrawal from Afghanistan was. It's an amazing thing. At one point during the interview, he talks about how even a child knew how you should and should not withdraw from Afghanistan. But you listen to Trump explain what went wrong in that debacle of a withdrawal, and you understand why there was relative peace in the world, including the Middle East, under his leadership, and why the world is going to hell in a handbasket under Biden and that mentally deficient Kamala Harris. Trump just has an intuitive, common sense understanding of geopolitics, and I'm more inclined to think that Biden did what he did in terms of that debacle of a withdrawal from Afghanistan on purpose, and that General Milley, as you'll see here, when Milley says it'll be cheaper to leave the weapons in the Middle East, I have a feeling there's something more nefarious at play there, but just listen to this wonderful summary of what a debacle that Afghanistan withdrawal was. And by debacle, I mean criminally negligent.
When I left, they started shooting our soldiers. But more importantly, what they did is they did that whole thing with, leaving. He shouldn't have left. Number one, should have left from Bagram, because Bagram's this massive base. It's got tremendous acreage around it, tremendous. It's a very big, it was built many years ago. And part of the reason you wouldn't have taken that is because it goes to China. 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear missiles, you should have never left Bagram. Number one, they should have left from Bagram. They should have left last. They should have gotten, we have Americans that are still there. They should have taken all their equipment out. Everything, every plane, every screw should have been taken out, every tent. And I said that's when I realized that Milley was a dummy. I said, we're leaving, but I want to get everything out. Sir, it's cheaper to leave it. I said, what do you mean
cheaper to leave
Yeah,
it?
he said it's cheaper to leave it. That was
Cheaper?
Cheaper. He said it's cheaper. Sir.
Not more dangerous.
He just said cheaper. I said, I want every plane. I want every tank. I want the goggles. They have night goggles. They have all this stuff that these guys now have. He said, sir, it's cheaper to get out and leave it. I said, so you think it's cheaper to leave a $150 million brand new airplane in there than it is to fly it out with a tank of jet fuel and put it in Pakistan or just fly it directly back? It's cheaper to leave. I said, this guy's nuts. I'm telling you, he was so stupid. He was so unwise. He was like an unwise man. And there were a number of them.
And as the grand finale, before we get there, make sure that you are liked, shared, subscribed, and that you have notifications turned on. Share my channel with someone who you think would like it, and more importantly, share it with someone who you know would not. This is my highlight when Trump describes what he would do in order to end the conflict in Ukraine and why that didn't arise when he was in office. Some of you are going to say, he doesn't ever answer the question. Well, of course he's not going to tell you specifically what he would do in order to end that war for the reasons that Trump says. You can't say it and then expect to implement it if he ever gets back into office. But bottom line, I trust Trump and I don't trust the people who turned the world into a dumpster fire. So that is the summary. Enjoy the final clip as I go into the house and prepare for tonight's show at 6 o'clock, Viva and Barnes Law for the People. If you want to buy some merch, you can go to vivafrei.com. If you want to support the community, you can go to vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the best above average community out there. But more important than anything, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in your life, get out there and vote on November 5th and vote before if you can. And now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
How would you have stopped it?
Automatic, two things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. I used to talk to him all the time. You're not going in. I can't tell you what I told him because I think it would be inappropriate, but someday he'll tell you. But he would have never gone in. But you know why else he wouldn't have gone in? Oil prices at $40 a barrel wouldn't have given him the money to prosecute that war. Wouldn't have given him the money. With President Xi, it was Beijing. It was almost the exact same conversation. The day I left, they flew 28 bombers over the middle of Taiwan. What happened is, number one, he doesn't respect Biden at all. Not even a little bit. And who the hell would? When he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled. Number one, you take the soldiers out last, not first. Okay, that was their big mistake. He left the equipment behind. He took his soldiers out before. A child would know. That's where Milley was so stupid. He was such a stupid guy. You take your soldiers out last. I had a big rally, and I saw a child in the front row. Called the child up. I said, do you mind if I borrow your child? I gave him quick details, I said, we want to get out of this place, and we have this, and we have this, and we have the equipment. I gave him a little thing. I said, do you take your soldiers out first or last after everything's done? You take them out last, sir. A child would know that. We took our soldiers out first.
What was your
we left,
plan?
And we left a Bagram.
Well, not only that, we
Bagram.
left billions of dollars worth of equipment and military vehicles that they use for parades now.
The best equipment, to embarrass us, the best equipment in the world.
The Taliban parade where they've got tanks rolling down the streets and Blackhawks flying is the craziest thing I've ever seen. The fact that we left all that stuff there.
Equipment in the world behind.